Hey guys, this is Tearless here with another Warlords of Draenor beta video. In this video I'm going to be looking at the last spec of Warriors, that is Fury Warriors. Fury Warriors did not receive as many changes as Arms or Prots, so the video will not be as rushed or long as the other two videos, but they still have their fair amount of changes. So we're going to look at their major changes, their new, changed, and removed abilities, their new and changed glyphs, their new Draenor perks, and then finally their changed and new talents. Now, the first new thing that you should know about Fury Warriors is that there's a visual change to the effect Blood Surge. Blood Surge was the ability to where you get the 3 free wild strikes and so forth. They've basically changed where it actually shows up on the indicator. As you can see on my left right there, I have the first Raging Blow indicator, and then there's the second Raging Blow indicator. But they have changed it to move it on top of the target as opposed to on the side. Also, you should know that there are many abilities with Fury that they have combined and condensed into the actual ability. For instance, Blood Surge is no longer a passive, it is now added into Bloodthirst directly. As you can see right there, that is the icon on top for Blood Surge. There are several other passive abilities that have been baked into the active spells. It's basically just to remove button bloat so that you don't have to, there's not, your spell book isn't as full anymore. So it is more like spell book bloat that they removed from the game. They're still there, just don't look in the same places. There is a kind of a big change to the way stances are now. They kind of are bringing back like stance dancing, so to say. Basically, I'm going to switch into Prot here, and you'll notice that I have Devastate, I have Revenge, and I have Shield Barrier all as a Fury Warrior. And I do not have to have a shield equipped to be able to use these. Blizzard has basically made it so that defensive stance is your stance to go to when you are taking damage and so forth, and so that is why like Shield Barrier is there. I mean, that's a big defensive cooldown that you can use if you start being focused and so forth. But they've changed Rage Regeneration to almost completely revolve around battle stance, so you need to be in battle stance if you want to deal damage. You're not going to be able to stay in defensive stance and still try and dish out damage. That's going to be exclusively for more of a survivability purpose than it is for a, oh, I'm gonna, take less damage and still be able to dish out some damage. No, it's more or less stance dancing back and forth depending on the situation that you find yourself in. So I really like the changes to it. It brings, some things that you've never had before. You've never had Devastate, Revenge, and Shield Barrier accessible to you before, and now you do. There is one new ability that has been brought to Fury Warriors and Warriors as a whole, and it is basically to up the value of haste as a stat. Headlong Rush was added. I believe it has been removed as an ability, and it is just baked into the Warrior class. You don't even see it, and basically what it does is haste will now reduce your global cooldown, and it reduces the cooldown of Shield Slam, Thunderclap, I believe Bloodthirst, and Mortal Strike. So, I mean, Bloodthirst is a normal 4.5 second cooldown, and right now I have it at 4.13. If I go ahead and click off my haste buff up here, if I can find it, we can see what it looks like now. It's now up to 4.34. So that is something that has been added to Warriors as a whole to increase the value of haste. There are several changed abilities for Fury Warriors. First of all, you should know that your shouts no longer generate rage, and they now last for an hour. So we've gone from like 2 minutes to 5 minutes to an hour long. So now they're just straight buffs. You can even see up on the right hand side I have the stamina buff, as they say, but it's commanding shout. So I mean, they basically, there's no reason to have that anymore, to have the small little shouts that you have to keep reapplying. They just change it, so now it's an hour-long cooldown. Charge has been changed to a root. They are trying to remove, as you notice, there's the rocks underneath. They're trying to remove stuns from the game. They've been trying to remove stuns from the game for a long time now. So now baseline charge is just a root as opposed to an actual stun. I believe it was originally a 1.5 second stun. Hamstring now actually damages the enemy for 20% damage, in addition to its movement speed reduction. Heroic Throw now has an 8-yard minimum range, so uh, basically you're not going to be able to heroic throw someone right in their face. The implementations dealing with gag order, the glyph, basically means you cannot, try and silence someone from just like a couple of inches away. You're going to actually have an 8-yard minimum range, to actually pull that off. Taunt is now in defensive stance. That's basically to, once again, create some differences between defensive stance and battle stance. There are going to be abilities that can only be used in defensive stance and some abilities that can only be used in battle stance, etc. There will be abilities that will automatically put you into those stances if you use them. So they basically have, kind of changed that a little bit and so forth. So just know that taunt is no longer available to battle. It's just defensive stance only. Mastery Unshackled Fury has been changed to increase all damage done as opposed to just physical damage done, and that is while enraged. And that is done to that was done due to a new talent that is available to Fury Warriors, which we will get to later. Raging Blow now extends the duration of your Colossus Smash by 2 seconds. The reason for this was, you can see it right here. Colossus Smash, from what I understand, for a lot of the PvE warriors, was not a popular option, and they did not like it, so this was kind of put in to mitigate that change. Whirlwind has had a rage reduction. It's now down to 20 rage as opposed to 30. Intimidating Shout got a PvP nerf. PvP nerfs happening all over the place, so I wouldn't worry about this too much. It's now has a 6-second duration, down from an 8-second duration. And then last, there was an intervene change to the wording. It used to say party members and raid members. Now it just says allies. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to intervene. Oh, the ability bugged out on me there, but it was used. You can now intervene anyone now. You no longer have to be in a party and so forth to intervene someone. You can just intervene as long as they are an ally, as they state it. You can see in the tooltip here it says run at high speed towards an ally. You can now, do it. Possible problem that possibly the reason that there was a bug was the fact that he's a Torn, even though we are in a sanctuary. And I do not see any. We can try it on this Draenor over here and see if it'll actually work. But it is a nice little buff that they have changed. See, there you go. I can now intervene just anybody who is my own race and so forth. There have been several removed abilities. Berserker Stance has been removed from the game. I know that was kind of like an old school. That was like the original Fury. That's kind of near and dear to Fury, because that was an original stance that was really tied to Fury, and it has been removed from the game. It just didn't work out how Blizzard wanted it. It kept getting worse and worse, so they just removed it from the game. Cleave has been removed from the game. You're going to have to find different ways now to actually pull off your cleaves. Demoralizing Banner and Skull Banner have both been removed from the game. Button Bloat Reduction. Disarm has been removed from the game, but I wouldn't worry about it too much because disarms have been removed from everyone. Weapon chains have been removed, so that's a nerf across the board. You're not going to really notice it as much anymore. Sunder Armor, anything causing weakened armor debuffs, etc. have basically been purged from the game. That is no longer available. Shield Wall, Deep Wounds, and Mocking Banner are now protection only, so they are not available to a Fury Warrior, and Thunderclap is now arms and protection only. You will not be able to use that as a Fury Warrior. There are several new glyphs coming to Fury Warriors in Warlords of Draenor. We're going to take a look at them. First of these is going to be Glyph of Drawn Sword. Each time you parry while Die by the Sword is active, you gain 5 rage. Notice it says exclusive with Die by the Sword and Flawless Defense. That basically means you can only have one active at a time. You cannot have all 3 of those actives or even 2 of those actives. Just one. There is Glyph of Heroic Leap, which increases your speed by 70% for 3 seconds after using Heroic Leap. It is exclusive with Glyph of Death from Above. There is Glyph of Raging Blow, which I think is awesome, and I believe many people will be taking. If both of your attacks from a single raging blow are critical strikes, then your next bloodthirst within 10 seconds heals for 200% more. I do believe that is something that people will be, seriously looking at and taking. There's Glyph of Rallying Cry. While your Rallying Cry is active, you gain 20% Leech, healing you for 20% of all damage and healing you cause. Leech is a tertiary stat that will appear on some gear. Basically, it's attack. It's leeching. You attack players, and you will get health based on it. There's Glyph of Shattering Throw. Shattering Throw has been removed from the game as a basic ability, and now you actually have to spec into it with the glyph. And it's weakened armor debuffs, etc. have been removed from it, and it's just there for removing vulnerabilities. I personally like taking Shattering Throw just so I can pop Pally Bubbles, but it's going to depend on what glyphs are available and what a Fury Warrior would like to take. Lastly, there is Glyph of Flawless Defense, which is you have 25% chance, reduced chance, for attacks against you to be critical strikes while Die by the Sword is active. Die by the Sword is kind of taking the place of Shield Wall, since Shield Wall is no longer available to protection to Arms and Fury. There are there's two major changed glyphs, and that is Glyph of Blitz, which is your charge now roots an additional 2 targets. That's basically a change in line with the change to charge and the fact that you no longer stun people, etc. There is a change to Colossus Smash, in that Colossus Smash, the duration of your Colossus Smash is increased by 13.5 seconds, but it now causes your attacks to only ignore 40% of your victim's armor. So a small little change there to Glyph of Colossus Smash. That leads us to the Draenor perks of a Fury Warrior. I'm gonna go ahead and bring them up here. To be honest, all Warriors got kind of crummy Draenor perks, unfortunately. But Fury got a little bit better than Warrior, but overall they're not the greatest. There's improved Colossus Smash, which Colossus Smash now generates 10 rage when hitting a target. There's improved Die by the Sword, which increases the damage reduction of Die by the Sword by 10%. There's improved Heroic Leap, which increases the radius of Heroic Leap is increased by, the damage radius is increased by 2 yards. And then lastly, there is enhanced Whirlwind, which Whirlwind's effects to increase raging blow targets now grants 2 charges per Whirlwind and can have up to 4 charges. So that one's actually pretty cool. I like that. That's definitely an improvement over anything that the other classes, the ARMS got specifically. Before we get into talent, there is one ability that I want you to know about. It's more of a raid buff, and that is Inspiring Presence. You inspire all nearby party and raid members, granting 3% versatility. I believe this is a buff that is shared with Warlocks. But it's definitely something that's going to be like, okay, I want to bring a warrior to a raid now. Versatility is a new stat that basically ups your damage, healing, absorption, damage reduction all across the board. So I think it's something, it's great that warriors have more of an exclusive buff that has been added to the game. And that's a passive that goes across the entire raid. So the last change is to the talents of warrior. I'm going to go through this from top to bottom because there are a lot of changes. First is Warbringer. It now stuns the target for 1.5 seconds instead of rooting it. So you kind of, with Warbringer, you get back your stun. I think on live it currently does the root. It's flip-flop from live. At one point Warbringer, I remember, increase the stun. Well, now it actually just grants the stun. So that's a change to Warbringer. Enraged Regeneration, it lost its ability to, I believe it was an increased healing while stunned, that it has lost that capability, so that is no longer in the game. Second Wind is kind of a heavy nerf. Basically, you now gain 10% leech as opposed to just gaining that healing buff that you used to. So that is definitely a nerf that people are going to notice that has happened to second wind. You now are not going to be able to, when you get below 35% health, you're not going to be able to just kite some person across the map as you regain your health. No, you're going to have to actually be in combat and, maybe pop a cooldown to try and keep your health alive and so forth to deal more leech damage, etc. The level 45 tier has been blown up and removed. It had all of the shouts, piercing howl, it had demoralizing, not demoralizing roar, but it had several different shouts that were put into the game. Those have all been removed from the game, except for piercing howl, which has been added directly to Fury only. So piercing howl is still in the game, and it is a baseline ability for Fury. But the other classes, the other shouts have been removed. If I remember correctly, piercing howl used to be in the original Fury tree anyway, so it's kind of returning home. There is Fury Strikes, which is Wild Strike costs 10 less rage. There's Sudden Death, which is your auto attacks have a 10% chance to make your next execute cost no initial rage and be usable on any target regardless of health level. And then there's Unquenchable Thirst, which is Bloodthirst no longer has a cooldown. I personally really like the Unquenchable Thirst. I think it'd be an awesome talent to take. But I'm not quite sure where PvEers and whatnot are, PvPers are leaning in terms of what talents they decide they're going to take. Stormbolt has been moved to the 60 tier, has been replaced with Blade Storm, so they've been swapped basically. Not quite sure around the full reasoning behind that, but that has been a swap that has been changed. It no longer fills the role of an AoE tier as Blade Storm did, so I guess it's a stun tier due to the Shockwave's stun and Dragon Roar's disorient-esque effect or knockback. So there's no clear theme of the tier now. Mass Spell Reflection has been changed in that it actually replaces Spell Reflection, and you no longer, the cooldown has been reduced from 1 minute down to 30 seconds. So I believe it was done to bring it in line with the other talents, make it, more sought after. Blade Storm has been moved to this tier. Nothing new there, just as I mentioned it earlier. And then there's the level 100 talents. The first is Anger Management, which is a passive, and that is every 30 rage you spend reduces the remaining cooldown of several of your abilities by 1 second. Those abilities are Avatar, Bloodbath, Blade Storm, Stormbolt, Shockwave, Dragon Roar, Mocking Banner, Heroic Leap, Recklessness, and Die by the Sword. The talent on the right here is Ignite Weapon. This is actually the talent that I believe Fury Warriors are taking at the moment. You ignite your weapons, deal 4,000 physical damage, increase 40% of one-handed weapon are equipped, as fire, and cause your auto attacks to deal fire damage for 10 seconds. This ability is not on the global cooldown. Basically, this is why the change to the mastery for Fury Warriors was made, so that it could apply to ignite weapons as well. So I can go in here, let me go ahead and use it, and now you can see my weapons are on fire and so forth. It's a pretty cool, it's a nice visual seeing your weapons on fire and so forth, but that is a it's a pretty cool talent, and it is right now the talent of choice for Fury Warriors. The last talent here is Ravager, and Ravager is basically a targeted Blade Storm. Ravager, throw a whirling axe at the target location, deals 7,700 damage to enemies within 6 yards, lasts for 1 second. It also increases your chance to parry for 30 seconds. That's more of a prot thing, but I'll go ahead and use it here. It's got a really cool spell visual, but I should let you know that unless people have their spell visuals, changed to accommodate for the new changes, you may not notice the whirling axe. It just shows a whirling axe, and all of those red stripes and whatnot don't show up. So it's a little bit more discreet than you may think, and I think it's definitely a talent that people may be looking at in PvP, especially in larger scale world PvP where there's turtles and etc. and so forth. So that's everything regarding Fury Warriors. Honestly, they didn't get as much changes, but I still think they're in great shape for Warlords of Draenor. I understand that Caster's mobility is getting cut down a lot, so I think you're going to see a lot more Fury Warriors out in PvP, and I know in PvE they're holding their own at the moment, but we haven't done damage passes that much, so we'll have to see about that, you know, as we progress further down the beta line as to whether or not they will be nerfed in terms of damage. Otherwise, that's everything regarding Warriors. I'm not sure what video I will be doing next, but there will be another class video soon. I will see you guys later. Tearless out.